You said something in your submission about low budgets being tied to low tax receipts, as in tax receipts to the GDP, and it's low because of our system. There are those who would think that these receipts and situations are usually kept at this way because of the cautionary measures of government not wanting to be overambitious. Do you agree with that?
To some extent, yes. To some extent, yes. Because, you see, if government wants to raise more revenue in terms of tax receipts, government must be aggressive. Our VAT is the lowest. I wouldn't say one of them, but the lowest, at 5%. South Africa is 14%. Some European countries are 25%. So why can't we raise our our VAT receipt? If we don't raise the VAT receipt, why not we raise the VAT on luxury goods? We cannot have our cake and eat it. We are pretending that the problems will disappear, but the problems are compounding. And so what we need to do as a country is to decide that, and I agree with Mr. Chukwu, because there's no way you use all your revenues for recurrent and then you borrow for capital. The law must be clear. And I think Fiscal Responsibility Act, that's why I've been thinking that we have to do away with Fiscal Responsibility Act and come up with what I call Fiscal Expansionary Act, bill. Because unless we make it clear that 50% of IGR must be used, minimum must be used for capital expenditure. And the law must make it a criminal offense for government to borrow, be it domestic or external, to finance recurrent. So that is where we should start. We have to do away with government expanding the recurrent. Let me show you how recurrent expanded between 2016 and 2018 budget. In 2017 budget, it increased by 395 billion. In 2018 budget, it increases by, in 2017 budget, increased by 330 billion. In 2018 budget, it increased by 514 billion, making it 844 billion increase. Whereas our capital expenditure has increased by only 483 billion during the same year. And now our debt servicing has increased to 1.034 trillion. That shows you that we can't go on this way. I continue to say this, not because I hate any government, but how can you be spending your revenue on your income and you don't invest in your business? That business cannot go long. All the rest of developed economy and developing the economy are leaving us behind because we are not investing in expanding and upgrading our infrastructure. And that's why we should continue to be dependent on other countries' finished goods. So what I'm saying in essence is that let National Assembly make it mandatory that this government cannot come up with a figure that cannot add up and they want us to believe it. Take, for example, why can't we increase our benchmark? Why can't we say that we are going to expect $50 per barrel instead of $45 per barrel? Why shouldn't we increase our exchange rate so that more revenues will come into government treasury? Why can't we increase it to 350 or 400? Because in 2018, 2019, as a result of election coming up, there will be a lot of liquidity pumped into the system, and that will crash the value of the naira. And of course, I'm one of those who want the value of the naira to be crashed, so that we stop, so that imported goods will be more expensive than locally made goods. But these are the things that our National Assembly and those who love this country have to come and without politicizing it, say enough is enough. Let's do things right. We can do things right because we are over 405 billion GDP. and South Africa is about 380. But South Africa budgets over $154 billion in its appropriation, and it goes ahead to make sure that over 70 to 80% of that is invested in South African infrastructure. We must do this, and if we don't do it, we'll continue talking. But the problem is that the population is growing, our GDP is not growing to take care of the population growth.
Okay. When Mr. Owegba was, mentioned the increase in exchange rates, to about 350, 400, I saw you, chuckle. Why?
You want to take your question as well so I can combine?
Yes. My question has to do with this, the fact that our current continues to increase. I mean, he gave a timeline of the way it's been increasing, but we don't seem to be employing more people, and people are retiring every year. And then there are those who are sitting tight in government or in offices, in the civil service especially. So how do we tie up all of this end?
Okay, let me start from yours. I'll come back to your question. For me, it's a misery that we have an increasing overhead of the government. The government has announced repeatedly that they have saved a lot of money from the implementation of electronic payment system to their employees. So if they are making those savings, where they have also announced to us that they've found so many ghost workers who they've been able to save their salaries. So where is the increment coming from? I'm not aware there have been any salary increase officially by the government. Unless they have been the stories about employment of people increasing the wage bill of the government through employment that were not made public is the issue. Otherwise, it will be difficult to explain where the increase is coming from. Then, back to your question. The value of a currency is based on the strength of the underlying basic on that economy. For instance, your export earnings, the flow of foreign currencies into your country, the level of productivity of that economy. So several factors come into play in determining an exchange rate. It is not something you determine by ordinarily. If you want to have a free market economy where you allow your currency to even float, then the underlying fundamental basics of your economy will determine what the exchange rate will be. So it will be difficult for me to say the exchange rate should now be devalued to 400. As long as you have a managed exchange rate, you don't have a free market economy.